Okay, so this is about to be one of the longest videos I've ever done, but if it goes well, I'll do 3 segments of it. Essentially, covering Dark Souls 1. This will be Dark Souls 1. Second video Dark Souls 2, and then third video Dark Souls 3. Hit now history behind me playing Souls games. So I'm playing Elden Ring right now. This is my second time playing Elden Ring. I really enjoy Elden Ring. I've played Sekiro, never defeated Ishin. Still haven't. Planning on starting over that game. Dark no, what do you call it? Dark Souls 3. I've played it a bit, just a bit. Same as Bloodborne. I've played it just a bit. Not enough for me to say, hey, I've played Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3. I have Dark Souls 2, but yeah, I've played it just even way less than the others, and but I'm interested. I'm interested in Souls games. I'm interested in the lore. So far, I know the lore of Elden Ring. Not too much, but I do know it. And yeah, now I want to know the lore behind Dark Souls. Now I've been watching a lot of videos of Dark Souls. I still don't know exactly what is happening, linking of the fire, all those things. But like I still don't know what's happening. I know more of Elden Ring than Dark Souls. Let me just put it that way. And I'm interested in knowing. So join me on this journey to understand the story behind Dark Souls series. Starting with Dark Souls 1, the game that I never even touched ever in my life. And it will be covered by none other than Ginji. Ginji, yeah, let's go. Let's go. The complete Dark Souls series, story, retrospective. Let's go.
Dark Souls is one of the best series of all
I'm
time,
working at the
and
same
has one
time.
of the most complex and
So,
remarkable
so I'm
narratives
looking
I've
here.
ever had the pleasure of uncovering. It's filled with so
Mm-hmm.
many ideas, themes, and values that breathe life into the series, and its various interpretations allow people to add in their own details, ultimately making their playthroughs a unique experience. So today, I want to take some time to talk about the trilogy. I want to not only retell the game's main stories, but also critique them along the way. I'm going to
Good.
examine why specific parts of the game are so well crafted and how its world design and bosses shape the story around them. So, with
Let's
that out of
go.
the way, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Hey, yeah, yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure.
Dark
Let's go.
Souls 1 is a fantastic game. It's got a wonderful story that would set in motion numerous
Mm.
events that would occur throughout the trilogy, but with just within the bounds of its own game, Dark Souls 1 has some incredibly deep and rich lore filled with some of the greatest backstories this series has
Yes.
to offer. And
Okay. Before he gets into it, before he continues, Majula, one of the best songs ever in existence. Like compared to every single song in existence, Majula is one of the most so peaceful, man.
today I want to discuss why. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, the opening cinematic of Dark Souls 1 starts with a gray world, one that is filled with giant trees and
The age of
dragons. And while the
ancients,
world stayed
the
like
world
that
was
for a
unformed and
while,
fell
one
by
day
fire.
fire was born. As for how
One day
this fire
fire was
came to be,
born.
well, it's never explained. This is
Yeah,
one of the many things we just have to
yeah.
accept. The world of Dark Souls is
Fire was
fantasy, and
just
many
born.
things just can't be explained.
Yeah,
It's never mentioned how the first flame was created, as it just happened. But because the first
yeah.
flame was born, disparity came with it life and death,
Disparity.
heat and cold, and light and dark. This description is literal.
Jesus.
Since the first flame was created, the people of the world felt its warmth and understood what heat was. When they walked
Mm-hmm.
away from the flame, they realized its heat didn't reach them, which created the feeling of cold.
Cold.
The
Yeah.
discovery of fire during the Stone Age is to this day the greatest discovery known to man, and in Dark Souls, this is no different. Given how unique something like this in the world of Dark Souls
I like
was, those
how
who discovered it were obviously attracted to its power.
I,
Four notable people would discover.
I like how fire just created everything, but it's so ambiguous. It's so it's not so specific, right? I don't know. There's so many specificities to the universe today that it's sort of nice just to get like a sort of similar to how religion views the creation of the world. It was like just everything just came to be in this way and that way, and I love it.
Lord
You know,
souls next to these flames and be given immense
it's
power.
so
These
mythology.
people were Nito, Izalith, Gwyn, and the Pygmy. From the
Okay,
intro, we
so
can infer
okay,
that there was a civilization of people that existed during the Age of Ancients. Izalith had daughters that were with her when she found her Lord Soul, and Gwyn had his knights with him,
mm,
implying that people did exist during the time of the Age of Ancients, but weren't of much value to the world
value.
given how powerful the dragons were. Eventually, Nito,
Oh,
Izalith, and Gwyn would
okay.
band together and use their power to overthrow the dragons. Gwyn used
Yo,
his
that's so
lightning,
weird,
Izalith
bro.
used her flames, and Nito used his death and disease. They also
Yeah.
received help from a Seath the Scaleless, a dragon who betrayed his own kind. Now that the new lords were on
Jesus.
top of the food chain, the Age of Ancients was no more and the Age of Fire had begun.
Okay, so they existed way before. I mean, they existed even when the fire was not there. People existed before the fire was not there because people were drawn to the fire. If they all of a sudden discovered the feeling, or maybe people existed after the fire. I'm not really understand. Okay, if the fire created everything, right? Even light and dark. Because if you go right there on light and dark, then I'm prone to believe that okay, no one existed before the fire, right? And then they felt the fire, they touched it, and then they became as powerful as they were. But they already had their own lives set up for them. Is what's his name? The Link guy has his soldiers. The woman has his sisters or daughters or whatever. I don't know. The other guy, I don't know what the other guy had. And there's dragons. Dragons existed too. So I don't know. Rocks existed too. Damn.
This period would last thousands of years until we get to
Yeah.
today. Currently, the fire is fading and it needs to be rekindled in order to keep it lit. But doing this is
Okay.
not as simple as it sounds. You may have noticed I forgot to talk about the pygmy. Well, the pygmy
Okay.
had a unique soul called the Dark Soul. Using his soul, he created something called humanity. He would then share this
Pygmy.
humanity with his people. These dark soul imbued people became known as humans. The pygmy is essentially our ancestor. Gwyn feared this power
Mm.
though and created the dark sign, which inadvertently caused the undead curse. This isn't explained much in Dark Souls 1, but it is by far the most important plot in the whole series. And while I just wanted to talk about this game for the whole video, this needs to be explained or else the rest of the
Well, hold on. Can I just go back just a little bit? Just a little bit. Maybe it's too far. I
and
don't know.
Gwyn would band together and use their power to overthrow the dragons. Gwyn
Okay.
used his lightning, Izalith used her flames, and Nito used his death and disease. They also
Okay.
received help from a
So the
seat, the
pygmy is the
Scales,
fourth
a
guy
dragon who betrayed his own
who
kind.
discovered the
Now
fire
that the new
too.
lords were on top of the food chain, the Age of Ancients was no more and the Age of Fire had begun.
That's what I
This
wanted to
period would
know.
last thousands of years until we get to today. Currently, the fire is fading and it needs to be rekindled in order to keep it lit. But doing this is not as simple as it sounds.
Okay.
You may have noticed I forgot to talk about the pygmy.
The fourth guy,
Well,
yeah.
the pygmy had a unique soul called the Dark Soul. Using his soul, he created something called humanity. He would then share this humanity with his people. These dark soul imbued people became known as humans. The pygmy is essentially our ancestor. Gwyn feared this power though and created the dark sign, which inadvertently caused the undead curse. This isn't explained much in Dark Souls 1, but it is by far the most important plot in the whole series. And while I just wanted to talk about this game for the whole video, this needs to be explained or else the
So
rest of the
confusing,
video
bro.
going forward will make no
So
sense. The
confusing,
undead
bro.
curse, the dark sign, and the fading of the fire are all linked. The dark
Yeah.
soul gets more powerful the closer the fire is to fading, thus meaning humans should get more powerful over time. But Gwyn screwed humanity twice by rekindling the flame, thus removing our chance at power, but also by branding humans with the dark sign. Think of this as a literal wall
dark
of fire
soul
that
has-
prevents the dark soul within men from getting too powerful. The dark sign
Okay.
only activates when the flame is fading, because that is when the dark soul within men starts to grow stronger. This dark sign also prevents humans from dying, but it also causes them to go undead. These fleshy creatures were once undead humans, but they have crossed the
Jesus.
barrier of no return. Even though humans are able to revive after death, eventually this will cause them to lose their humanity, lose their minds, and
Yeah.
lose their purpose, causing them to go hollow. These creatures are hollows, beings who don't even remember who they are, where they are,
Okay.
or what they're even doing. Gwyn
Okay.
likes being on top, and he fears the day that he will lose his power, so he'll do anything
Gwyn.
he can to prevent that from happening.
love that
He did
cutscene.
this by branding humanity with the dark sign, but by also rekindling the flame, which is known as the first sin. See, the world is like a set of
Okay.
operations. Things are born, but eventually they'll die. But then more things will be
Okay.
born, only to die soon after. That's just the way the world works. But
Okay.
Gwyn broke the laws of the world by rekindling the first flame. It was meant to be extinguished, but due to Gwyn wanting to hold on to what he held dear,
The
he
power.
couldn't dare see it go. He sacrificed himself by using himself as kindling for the first flame. Since he had one of the 4 original Lord Souls that came from the first flame, it
Flame,
was
yeah.
deemed sufficient enough to be used as fuel, and thus the gauge
Okay.
of fire continued. But as we know, it is fading once more. The undead curse is back, humans are turning hollow, and the world is in chaos.
Yeah.
Doesn't this sound
Okay.
like a fantastic story?
Damn.
That's because
a
it
desperate
is.
move.
This intro
Yeah.
and even the game
Yeah.
display a sense of desperation within our characters. How far are people willing to go to get what they want or keep what they have? And while each of their
exactly.
desires
Yeah.
is different, it always comes out the same. Dark Souls 1 is just the start, but the actions of its
Yeah,
characters
it's like
will
everything
continue
ends.
to echo throughout the entire trilogy, and we're just getting started. After the opening cinematic, we get to see the
Damn,
state
bro.
of the world as it is today, or at least the state of this
Was
present.
just
We're
part
an
of a
undead that
huge,
is
was just part of a huge cycle here of something that has to happen, essentially. So even are we gonna face the same options? Because in Elden Ring, you get to pick your ending. I'm guessing the ending of Dark Souls is like, do you keep the cycle going? Do you rekindle the flame using yourself, or do you let it fade? Wow, I actually just it makes sense to me now. You know how long I've been trying to think like, okay, I need to understand the Dark Soul series games. Story. I need to understand the lore. What is going on? What is the point? Why is it sad? Why does it have to happen? Now I see that it's not even a good or bad type of thing, or good or evil, but it's like it's doing something that's necessary. And if you necessary according to what you treasure, I guess, or if you don't treasure anything, if you feel like no, the cycle of life has to continue the way it was set out for, then you're gonna let the dark age come through. I guess I don't know. You're gonna let the fire fade. Damn,
sitting in their cell
can't
awaiting the
believe
end of
it.
the world. But one day we're given the key to our cell and are able to leave. This person is Oscar, and he
Oscar.
speaks of a prophecy.
There is an old saying in my family:
Okay.
Thou who art undead art chosen. In thine exodus from the undead asylum, maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know.
This
Okay.
prophecy also happens to be the main objective of the game, but it's only the first
Okay.
part. The rest we'll have to discover later. The intro of Dark Souls 1 sets up a new world by showcasing multiple important events in the world's history. It also gives us enough information to understand the basic premise of the game, while also purposely withholding some of that information to give us a reason to seek out said information. One thing we need to consider, though, is our character's motivations. Why even bother making the trip to Lordran, the Land of
Yeah.
Lords?
Why?
Well, what else is there to do? It's the end of the world, and you were just given the keys to your cell, allowing you to explore the world to your heart's content. Even if you're convinced that life is doomed and the world as we know it will disappear for good, why not make the most out of it? Have some fun, kill some hollows. It's a whole lot better than rotting in a cell. With our objective laid out to
It
us thanks
is.
to
It is.
Oscar, we can now set out to Lordran and
I'm
ring the
I'm I'm
bells.
I'm even trying to think like what set out the path for our character in Elden Ring to do what he does as well, to become the Elden Lord or something like that. It's just it's after so many things have happened. But with Elden Ring, I have to admit it's much more concrete of a story than Dark Souls to me. I haven't played Dark Souls series to that extent, but I don't know. I feel like From Software have developed this thing of like, no, let's just make our stories much more, easier to understand, easier to just read. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're just using the same formula. Maybe I'm the one twisted here. Maybe I just don't. Maybe I need to play Dark Souls. Okay, yeah, I think that's it.
Technically, the first area you're meant to go is the Undead Burg, but one wrong step and you can make it to New Londo. Out of all the Souls games, Dark Souls 1 will provide the best blind playthrough, as due to its connected world, players will go in different directions, which in
Oh,
turn will create different experiences.
I need to
New
do. I
Londo
need
is
to do
actually a
that.
late game area, since the enemies here are quite strong and the boss at the end of the level is quite tough, but you may stumble
Okay.
upon this area by accident within 5 minutes of arriving. This is due in part to Dark Souls 1's level design, which may have the best level design
I
in the whole
I need I
franchise.
need
It's been
that. I
coined as a
need that.
Metroidvania, a genre that started with the games Metroid and Castlevania. These games have
Okay.
non-linear progression, as many areas can be accessed right away, but others can't,
Can't,
causing the
yeah.
player to go around the map looking for the key, then running back to that same location. Such as this door
Jeez.
that leads to Havel, which can only be found in the Dark Root Basin past
What?
a boss. The door is found pretty early on in your playthrough, but the key is found much later. Plus, you'll also have to remember where that key goes. You'll be doing
Jeez.
lots of running
Yo.
in this game. The highlight of one of my play sessions was going from Blighttown to Andre because I forgot to ascend my weapon before a boss fight, meaning I had to take a 3-minute walk up to him, then a 3-minute walk back down. In future titles, this would be remedied by fast travel, but Dark Souls 1 doesn't have fast travel
Yeah,
initially, and even when you do gain the power of fast
I heard
travel
about
via
that.
the Lord Vessel, it's not the typical fast travel we're familiar with, as we're only allowed to travel to specific bonfires. These decisions further
What?
immerse the player into the world as it's all one connected level. And since they're all connected, that means you can see
Man,
certain
the
levels from
rats
different places,
are
such as
always
Blighttown, which is
impressive.
visible from
Oh,
Fire Shrine.
too
So not
impressive.
only
I
was the
hate them.
level design of each area taken into account, but also how the levels
Is that a
connected to
slug?
one
What the
another and
hell?
how this connection would affect other areas. Regardless of where you end up though, whether that be New Londo or Undead Burg, the very first enemies you'll come to see are these hollow men like the ones back in the asylum. All the undead we see here are humans who have lost their humanity, causing them to go hollow. And now, since we are human, we should go hollow too. However, it's a bit more meta than that. Hollowing is a bit hard to define as everyone can go hollow for different reasons, but the two main ideas seem to stem from constant death or a loss of purpose. Given that our character is
Okay.
set on ringing the bells, he never goes hollow despite being undead, as he
Dead,
still has a
yeah.
purpose. Should the player quit and uninstall the game, they would lose their purpose, so permanently quitting the
I
game is
guess,
sort of
yeah.
like hollowing in a sense. I don't think everything needs to be
Yeah.
explained with lore, so this is more than likely just a gameplay mechanic, but that's
Yeah.
how I've interpreted hollowing.
But if
On
that
our list of bells,
if somehow they incorporated that into the game, like if you quit the game somehow, maybe if you don't quit the game properly, right? If you signify to the game that you're never gonna come back and play this thing for a while, maybe then the game itself can delete your progress and you can be hollow. Maybe that can be the game's way of telling you that no, you went hollow and now you gotta start over with a new character or something like that. That's just something I'm thinking of. I remember in PS2 they used to do things like that where when you like somehow in is it Metal Gear Solid, they would incorporate your gameplay time and your gameplay time and how long you haven't been playing the game into the game itself. Somehow they would do that, and I found that amazing, man. I found that really intriguing, and I would have loved if that's what they would do in this game. I don't know, just an extra thing I had to say there.
of Awakening will come across various different locations, but sadly there isn't a whole lot of backstory involved in their creation. Locations like Undead Burg are just undead settlements, and the Valley of Drakes is just a valley filled with drakes. The only exceptions, though, are Ash Lake and Blighttown. Blighttown is next to a location called the Depths, and at the end
Yeah.
of the Depths is the Gaping Dragon. And while an interesting
Gaping
boss,
Dragon.
what's more important is the arena. We can see water coming from the depths and going into the sewer system,
Sewer,
which
yeah.
leads to Blighttown. According to various keys in the game, we can piece together that those who previously lived in the Undead Burg but were banished from the settlement were sent to Blighttown as punishment. This is reinforced by the giant door that separates the sewer system from the outside
Blighttown.
world. But this water from the sewer is poisonous. Well, in Blighttown, there's a spell called Poison Mist, and according to its description, it seems that Enki, this egg-bearing individual, may have caused this as he was the creator of the Poison Mist spell. It's not fully confirmed that he did this, but it's clear that Blighttown isn't in the greatest state. And it's due to the
Okay.
circumstances surrounding Blighttown that the townsfolk seem to have built
It's a
above the
lake
water
full
in
of
hopes of
poison.
getting away from it. This is a common theme in these games of things being built on top of one another, as we see Blighttown
I remember I'm sorry for pausing so many times, but damn, it's only been 10 minutes and I'm pausing so many times. I'm so sorry about this. But I just wanted to say this. I do know that Elden Ring, Souls games, they have this idea of adding poisonous swamps, poisonous lakes, a field full of poison all the time. It's insane. I love that.
above the swamp,
In
the
Elden
depths
Ring,
above
it's like
Blighttown, and the Undead Burg above all that. The idea of pushing things down and leaving them to fester is also a common theme within this game, but not everything is in such a sad state. As at the lowest point of Lordran, we see Ash Lake, a seemingly infinite
Yeah.
land filled with arc trees that are surrounded by an equally infinite body of water. For the purposes of Ash Lake, this seems to be where the dragons used to live, or at least one part of it, as it's eerily
Yeah.
similar to the environment in the intro, which we
Yeah,
do
in the
know was the
cutscene,
land
yeah.
of the everlasting dragons. We can even find one of the few remaining dragons down here in Ash Lake. He's a part of the Dragon Covenant in game, and from various descriptions, it seems like many people worship the dragons and tried to ascend to their level. It's unclear though if that worked. Once the player feels confident in their fighting abilities, they can approach the bosses
Oh, my
defending the
goodness,
Bells
okay.
of Awakening,
Oh,
these
Jesus,
being the
okay.
Bell Gargoyles and Chaos Witch Quelaag. After
Okay.
ringing both bells, we'll see that Sen's Fortress, a place that was originally blocked with a large gate, is now open. But if we travel back to Firelink Shrine, we'll find a primordial serpent named Frampt. He claims to be a close friend of Gwyn's, and also claims to know our fate.
Very well. Then I am pleased to share.
I can't trust this
Chosen
fool.
undead. Your fate
He looks way
is
too
to
disgusting.
succeed the great Lord Gwyn, so that you may link the fire, cast away the dark, and undo the curse of the undead. To this end, you must visit Anor Londo
Wait, what?
and
Undo?
acquire the Lord Vessel.
Just like before,
Wait, hold on. Undo the curse of the dead? Is that what Gwyn wanted to some degree? Because he did sabotage the other dude's you know is it, what is it, kids or whatever, I don't know, ancestry, whatever, man. The other guy who linked the fire. No, who didn't link the fire? Who got a whiff of the fire? One of the four guys. The ancestor of the undead. I don't know, of the
Or this
humans.
second part of the prophecy also happens to be our newest objective. But Frampt is quite a complex character. If certain conditions are met within the game, we can also be granted an audience with Koth. He, however, tells us a different story.
Your ancestor claimed the dark soul and waited for fire to subside. And soon the flames did fade, and only dark remained. Thus began the Age of Men, the Age of Dark.
So it wasn't just the fact that the fire was fading that caused Gwyn to rekindle it. The flame actually went out. Furthermore, despite being the same species, both Frampt and Koth have different views on the world. Frampt wants to
Yeah.
keep the Age of Fire going, but Koth wants to usher in an Age of Darkness. The question is, who do we trust?
Ugh.
Well, that's up to you, as these are the two endings of the game. Extinguish the
Okay.
flame or rekindle it. The choice is yours.
I
What is
can't
important
trust
to note,
snakes.
though, is their motivations. Why are they doing this?
I can't
Why are they
trust
against
snakes.
each other? Well, we still don't know, and it's been a widely debated topic that hasn't been given a proper answer yet. Regardless,
What?
I don't think
Even
you should
now?
trust any of them. Frampt claims that the undead curse will be cured if we link the flame, but this isn't correct. As we'll see in Dark Souls 2 and 3, the curse is still present. Frampt and Koth
Okay.
are like politicians. They say what needs to be said, but never elaborate. By technicality, the undead curse will be cured when we link the flame. As we know, the dark sign only appears when fire fades. And if it's not fading, then the curse of the dark sign is gone, which means the curse goes with it. But it will eventually come back. Things are meant to run their course, so over time the fire will fade again and the curse will come back, just not in our character's lifetime. Frampt, whether intentional or not, is leading the player to believe that the curse will disappear permanently, when indeed it only just disappears for a few thousand years. But Koth is also lying, as he isn't fully explaining what this Age of Darkness entails, and as we'll see,
Yeah.
Koth isn't exactly the nicest person in the Souls
Oh
universe.
my God,
I've always
what-
seen
what
these
was
two
that,
as
bro?
immortal beings, ones that are ageless. And due to this, when the time comes, they like to move the pieces a bit and see what happens. Koth and Frampt are basically playing a long game of chess, but without the stakes. Regardless of who wins, they
Yeah.
both continue to live. One just managed to convince the chosen undead more. So why not cause a bit of chaos? A lie or two here wouldn't hurt anybody, as it's just extra pieces on the board to them. To this day, we still don't know
Jeez,
what
what
they
is
really
going
want
on,
from
bro?
us and whether their goals they conveyed to us were actually genuine. My interpretation of these could be wildly incorrect, but that's the beauty of these games. They allow you to shape
Yeah,
your own story
yeah.
and create your own adventure. And in my
But-
story, I don't trust these two. Regardless of who you
I like that. I like that version of the story where we can't trust them. They have their own motives, and somehow, oh my God, none of these things lead to a good solution. None of those options. Those are your endings. Then you have two fools trying to convince you that this one is better than the other one. I don't know what they're even trying to do. Are they even competing against each other? What's going on? I don't know.
believe, the one thing they agree on is that we need the Lord Vessel. Thus, we need to get to Anor
Lord
Londo.
Vessel.
To get there, we'll need to pass through Sen's Fortress, a place filled with deadly traps and is easily the most infuriating area in the whole game. The fortress is also used as a sort of trial,
Oh my
as this
God.
leads us to Anor Londo, but many people
Okay.
have tried and failed to get there. This is, of course, due to the numerous traps throughout the fortress and the Iron Golem at the top, although he was surprisingly the easiest part of the fortress. Once the Golem is defeated, we are then grabbed by these demons and taken to Anor Londo.
You're grabbed by demons. Imagine a bunch of demons
Hey,
just
Jack
come
Ryan
through
fans,
like that.
we just want to say thank you for watching.
Sorry. Oh my God. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you. You may continue the video. Yeah, and imagine a bunch of demons just coming and grabbing you, just like that, bro. Hey, let me go! Let me go! What you doing? Ah, man. Oh, never mind. Okay. They're taking me to some. Okay.
It's hard to forget your first time in Anor Londo. Nothing up until this point has been more extravagant and beautiful looking than this place, and that's what makes it so memorable. In a world devoid of beauty and color, there's this incredible place that just exists, but it's on the other side of the wall. But something is off. It feels empty, like we showed up late to a party,
Yeah.
and in a more metaphorical and literal sense, we have. This place is gorgeous, but if you'll excuse the pun, it's also quite hollow. Lots of your time in Anne Orlando is spent walking, but if you manage to make it past these giants and exploit the AI of these Silver Knights, then you will
Oh
make it to the
man, that
climactic fight
sucks.
of Ornstein and Smo. ONS is undoubtedly my
Ornstein,
favorite fight in Dark Souls 1. The balance of these two is
Smo.
unmatched, as Ornstein is a quick, nimble fighter that can go halfway across the arena just to hit you, but his damage is nowhere near as staggering as the force that is Smo. Whereas Ornstein instills fear from his speed, Smo's fear comes from his power. Ornstein at the beginning of the fight is more or less a pushover. He does deal decent damage, but it's not enough to warrant a healing.
Dragon
But
Slayer.
no amount of damage resistance, especially this early on, could protect you from Smo's hammer. And one hit from this hammer can make Ornstein seem a lot more threatening. Their power grows from the other's presence, as the more Ornstein chips at your health, the closer you are to being within one-shot range of Smo. And if Smo hits
Yeah.
you once, well, there's nothing that can compare to that level of stress. They feed off each other in such a balanced way. In fact, they actually feed
Damn.
on each other, as whoever falls first becomes the power source for the other. Their health also goes back to full, so it's never about dwindling them down over time, it's committing to one and sticking with it. The
Yeah.
problem is knowing when to strike and how. Given how well they complement each other, it might seem like there's never an opening,
Jeez,
and
look
that's
at
what
that.
makes them such a difficult fight. All
Damn,
that's required
bruh.
from the player is patience. It's arguably one of the best fights in the game, and even the series as a whole, and I can finally see why. While ONS may seem like the climactic finish to the level, hold your load, as behind them
Yeah.
is the real climax.
Hold your
the
load.
Princess of Sunlight, Guinevere.
Oh,
Feel free to interpret climax however you want. She is the one who gives us the Lord Vessel we need to progress through the game, but as I
Okay.
said earlier, it feels like we arrived late to a party. Well, I wasn't
Okay.
lying. Once the post-nut clarity settles in, if we attack Guinevere, the world of Anne Orlando shows its true colors, and reveals that it's just as depressing as everything else in Lordran, and the one responsible for this illusion is Darksong Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is an
Darksong
interesting case to me, as he was the last-born child of Gwyn, who was a male but was raised as a female. This was due to his strong affinity with moon magic. I'm not sure what the connection is, but maybe it's some sort of cultural thing where the moon is seen as a sort of feminine symbol, which would actually explain a lot regarding a future game and two of its characters. Gwendolyn also created the illusion of Anne Orlando to seemingly entice the chosen undead to continue their duty. Remember, Gwendolyn only appears when we kill Guinevere's illusion, meaning that this is actually Gwendolyn speaking to us through his sister. He also shares the same viewpoints as Frampt, which is interesting as he's basically telling us to kill his father and continue the Age of Fire. Gwendolyn seems to want to hold on to the power his family has and keep things running smoothly, which is why he wants the Age of Fire to continue so that his family and their powers can stay. And the reason why
Yeah.
he created the illusion of Anne Orlando was also to desperately hold on to the past.
so this is how it
Huh,
looks
I guess
like.
it runs in the family then. As for how Guinevere fits into this, well, she was Gwyn's second-born child, who, like many other deities, left Anne Orlando. She would then meet with a flame god Flan and later become his wife. Besides these
Okay.
two, Gwyn had two other children, but we'll have to wait for Dark Souls 3 to discuss more about them. So Anne Orlando, the city of
Okay,
gods,
okay.
this place that was supposed to be seen as a beacon of hope to all within Lordran is
It was
just an
actually
illusion.
illusion,
But
yeah,
Anne Orlando
yeah.
isn't the only illusion of Lordran. By making our way to the painting inside the city, upon touching it, we're thrown into the painted world of Ariamis. Ariamis
Painted
as a
world?
concept is fascinating, as it's this world within a world, and these people inside the painting could possibly never know of the world
How does
outside
wait
of it.
what?
From exploring this hidden world, we learn that Ariamis
That was
made
trippy.
for things the gods fear.
I don't know. Does the
Ariamis is
walls
home
look
to the
painted,
followers
or
of
it's just me?
Velka, and Velka is known as the goddess of sin. Furthermore, this is the only location in the
Damn,
game
bro,
where
you can
find the
fall and
Dark
die.
Ember, which according to its item description
way.
is used to make occult weaponry.
No.
Weapons that were favorable amongst those who plan to kill the gods and their kin. Velka was more than likely someone who wanted to hunt the gods but was killed or thrown into the painting. It's clear that this place has a malicious history behind it, but it's not all bad, as the person who watches over Ariamis is crossbreed Priscilla. Priscilla is a
Crossbreed.
half-human, half-dragon crossbreed. Due to this unique birth, she also gains some unique abilities, mainly the ability of Life Hunt, which she uses on her sight. These powers of hers could threaten the gods' rule, so they also threw her into the painted world. But what's rather interesting is Priscilla herself. She's the only boss in the game that doesn't want to fight us. She even tells us how to leave Ariamis, meaning not only does she have no intent of enacting revenge, but she knows how to leave yet refuses. Priscilla may have
Why?
felt how these new arrivals feel, but instead of using vengeance, she uses acceptance, and instead welcomes these people into her painted world. It's actually quite wholesome, and is the reason why I couldn't kill her.
Jesus.
Every boss in this game is hell-bent on killing me, so when I finally discovered one that didn't want to, and
To,
in fact helped me, I couldn't refuse. So I left. with the hope that Priscilla would be able to make this place a proper home for her people. This whole area is swarming with hollows and other creatures that want nothing more than to kill us, but they were either tricked into here or thrown in because the gods willed it. And yeah, some of them
Yeah.
probably do belong in here, but if Priscilla is
Gonna tell
set
you
on making
something,
this
bro.
place a home for those who have found themselves here, then who am I to intervene? After
Yeah.
acquiring the Lord Vessel, when we meet with Koth or Frampt, they'll tell us that to gain access to Gwyn, we must gather the remaining Lord Souls and use them to satiate the Lord Vessel. These Lord Souls belong to 4 individuals: Seat the Scaleless, the Witch of Izalith, Nito, and the 4 Kings, 3 of whom you will have already recognized. From here, we can tackle the game in any order we want, so let's start with the 4 Kings. The 4 Kings
Okay.
are, well, 4 kings who ruled over New Londo. They were given fragments of Gwyn's soul, which is why we need to kill them. You may
Okay.
recognize their boss location, as this is the same dark abyss that we met Koth in. Well, long ago, the 4 kings were tricked by Koth and were consumed by the abyss. This caused the kings to go mad, and this also caused the
Okay.
citizens to either become these blobs of mass or the Dark Wraith soldiers. This area really utilizes the environment to tell its tale, as
So
this place
dark
is
in this place,
overrun by
bro.
the ghosts of the villagers, and when we actually unlock the door
insanely
to
dark.
lower New Londo, we see piles of corpses scattered throughout the land.
I'm so
Koth
sorry.
single-handedly
I'm so sorry for being so quiet, but I'm literally sinking in and learning more, and we still have a lot to cover here. It's only been 20 something minutes. Wow, that's crazy, bro. That's
destroyed an
insane. That's
entire
a
city
lot to
simply by
do.
tricking its inhabitants and unleashing the abyss upon them. While the mass extinction of a city sounds bad, there is still more destruction to be seen. One thing you may have noticed is a severe lack of human bosses. Quelaag would probably count as the first one you'd meet, although she's sort of half-human, but there's a reason for this, as this has to do with the Witch of Izalith. While Gwyn was frantically running around trying to figure out what to do with the flame, the Witch of Izalith had a plan. She was going to create a new flame that would replace the first flame, but she attempted to create a replica in the presence of the very thing that was created, which brought with it massive consequences. The Witch of Izalith wanted to create a new first flame, but there was already a first flame present in the world. There can't be 2 first flames. Due to this, the flame that she created couldn't be contained for long, causing it to erupt, and this not only consumed her and her children, but also created new life, as it gave birth to demons. The Asylum, Taurus, and Capra Demon, roughly the first 3 bosses in the game, were created from this event. In fact, anything that has the word
A
demon
mistake.
in it is most likely derived from this flame of chaos.
Yeah,
But not
yeah.
only was new life created, old life was altered. All of Izalith's family who were caught in the explosion were all transformed into demons themselves. Chaos Witch Quelaag, the Fair Lady, and Ceaseless Discharge are 3 of Izalith's children. Just as Gwyn was desperate to continue the Age of Fire in an attempt to keep what he had, so too did Izalith, but the consequences are a reflection of her actions. In an attempt to give life to something bright and
Jesus.
warm, she ended up giving life to something cold and dark. She also wanted to extend the Age of Fire in order to continue her prosperous life with her children, but by doing so, she ended up making their lives a living hell. Not a single person in this family tree is living a robust life anymore. Quelaag and her sister, the Fair Lady, are half demon and are more than likely suffering from their condition, as told to us by the Fair Lady.
Oh my
Quaylag, what is it?
good lord, what the hell?
Quaylag,
Oh,
dear sister, the eggs, it hurts. They've gone still. I am afraid it may be too late.
somebody put her out of her misery.
So sorry, dear sister.
Ceaseless Discharge was covered in lava source and birth, so his life was a living hell from the start. The Flame of Chaos just made it worse. Ceaseless Discharge, just like Priscilla, doesn't actually want to fight us. It's only until we steal this clothing set that he attacks us.
Okay.
This clothing set rests upon a grave that belonged to his sister Quaylana, who he believes died in the explosion, when in fact she was the only one who escaped. Quaylana will appear in Blighttown if the player is sufficient enough in Pyromancy. Quaylana explains that she was
Okay.
the only one who made it out of the reaches of the Flame of Chaos. In fact, she was actually able to harness the power of the Flame of Chaos and create magic, which we know as Pyromancy. Quaylana wants
Yeah.
us to fulfill her duty for her, as she does not have
I
the strength
just-
to go on.
And you only encounter her if you master pyromancy to some degree. That's crazy. Sorry about this, but you can miss so many things when it comes to Dark Souls. You can miss so many things that if you don't pay attention to. Yeah, no, like the game doesn't even force you to do extra, investigation, the reading, follow up on the story. You can just follow the linear path. That's
He
it.
instructs us that we need to put down her siblings and her mother so that they may rest in peace. This whole family dynamic is horrific, as Ceaseless believes that all his sisters are dead, even though Quaylana is alive. And Quaylana is only a few meters from her sister, and yet we can't tell her about this. Clearly, this is turning into a very depressing story, but it only gets worse. As we get closer to the final boss of the area, we'll meet with a pyromancer who
Oh
is
boy.
assumed to be a
Someone's calling me. Hello? Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Mhm. Unfortunately, yeah, no, like, unfortunately, I tried to contact MWeb a while ago, multiple times, and yes, yeah, I did get the notification. No, they did tell me on yesterday's calls that I would expect a call from you guys to let me know on exactly what's happening. But I did contact the hotel, and I already set up something with them already because they, yeah, yes, yes, yes. So yes, with 99, yes, 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 net 9 on net 99, yes, yes, yes. So yeah, so yeah, that's the thing, yeah. Yes, 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 yes. So I just wanted to actually ask anyone, who might have a bit of information from this. This is not I mean, yes, this is a cancellation of the MWeb thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to pay for any cancellation fee. Am I correct? Okay, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah. No, 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 no. I think you've been a big help. Yeah. Okay. 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 Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day as well. Thank you. Bye bye. That was um not weird. It's just weird when you have to reject an offer, for something that you were so desperate for a long time ago. I was so desperate for their help. It's only now that they call me back. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? No, you have lost your chance. You lost your chance. But if the other opportunity does not work out, I will be happy to oblige that offer. I hope it's available. Let's go.
another daughter of Izalith, although it's unclear why she is so far down in these ruins yet is completely unharmed. It's possible that she, like Quaylana, escaped the flame of chaos, but this daughter came back to finish off the boss right behind her, or has possibly gone insane and is now defending said boss. And by going down this slide, we will meet this monstrosity who is the Bed of Chaos. This is the
What
Witch of
head of
Izalith.
care?
One of the four most powerful people in the world has been demoted to this deformed tree-like creature. There are also these orbs next to her that we need to destroy in order to damage her, and it's assumed by many that these are her other two daughters that were closest to her when the flame erupted.
Oh,
So
what?
we have two daughters stuck to their mother, two daughters who were half afflicted by the flame, a son who is arguably the most affected, and two daughters who managed to survive. One who doesn't have the strength to carry on anymore, and another who sits outside her mother's arena. This is by far the most depressing
The
story I've
saddest,
ever had the
yeah.
misfortune
Yeah.
of covering. The further we push into Lost Izalith, the more of the family we get to meet, allowing us to see the consequences of her actions. We can see the pain that all of them are in, as some of them are just wishing for their siblings back, and others just want to stay alive. It's an awful story that all leads to the final fight with Izalith herself, and it is by far the most anticlimactic ending I've ever experienced. It is
Yeah.
agreed upon by many that the Bed of Chaos is
How
the
do you even
worst fight
destroy
in
her?
Dark Souls 1. The boss is insanely difficult, but it's
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
difficulty itself that's the issue, it's why the boss is difficult. I would argue that just within the main game, the two hardest bosses are the Four Kings and Ornstein and Smoke. O and S are difficult bosses because there's two of them. You have to have both
Jeez,
on the
man.
screen at all times or you'll lose this fight. This is balanced by having Ornstein
What?
be fast but not as lethal, and Smo being slow and hard
You gotta
hitting.
cut all
It's a
them
wonderful
branches.
dichotomy that makes for a satisfying fight. And the Four Kings is a DPS check, as every 30
Jeez,
to 45
okay.
seconds a second king will spawn, and this will keep going until 4 on your screen at once. To succeed, you need to kill the current king before this happens. Both boss fights are hard, but have weaknesses you can exploit. The Bed of Chaos has none. To defeat the boss, you need to destroy both orbs on her sides, then go down the middle inside of her so you can find the source of her power. She's actually extremely weak, as both the orbs and her die in one hit. It's getting there that's the issue. Her hand attack is oddly timed, and due to her design, it's unclear where her
Yeah.
hitbox ends. After defeating one of the orbs, the floor will start to crumble, so not only do you need to avoid her attacks, but you'll also need to avoid the floor. There's also
Yeah.
a strict path you're meant to follow for
sucks.
this fight, which will lead you right next to a broken piece in the flooring,
Oh
so
my
you'll
goodness.
more than likely get hit and fall in and die. The walk back to this boss is also just as atrocious, as you'll more than likely spend more
Oh
time walking to the
man,
boss
that
than
would
actually
piss me
fighting
off so
her.
much.
Thankfully, there is no reset involved in this boss, as every single run you've done is carried over to the next, as it essentially has unlimited checkpoints. It's like From Software
what?
knew it was bad, but still kept it in. Even if I actually enjoyed the fight, the payoff narratively isn't worth the time. We ventured further and further into the depths of Lost Izalith, coming across all of her children who were these hideous beasts that did incredible damage, and she's just a puzzle. The Witch of Izalith has one of the best backstories in the game, as the tale of her children is heartbreaking, and being able to see their conditions face to face does take a lot out of you. But it's completely soured by a boss fight that is mechanically and narratively a letdown. Our third Lord Soul belongs to Grave Lord Nito, and he's
That's sad, bro.
interesting, to say the least. Nito might have the most
Yeah,
detailed boss design,
Nito.
but the most basic story
The
out of all
death
the
guy.
four lords. If you were to just assume that Nito simply became the Grim Reaper and just administered death, you wouldn't be far off, which is a shame for someone of his
I mean, yeah, he
importance.
looks-
Grave Lord Nito lives in the Tomb of Giants, which is
Grave Lord
accessed via
Nito.
the catacombs. Both of these areas share a similar theme
He's a
of death,
flippin'
as this
lord.
is where the dead are buried. So
You
we know
get
that
to
he
fight him, like, he
administers
looks
death,
actually
but
amazing.
What else does he do? Well, not much else. He does have a covenant that you can join, but their
That's
goal
like
is
a-
just to
that's
spread
like a
more death
cult,
across
man.
the world. It seems like he doesn't care about what's going on in the world, as the only reason he attacks you is because we're obviously here with
Yeah.
malicious intent.
Yeah,
Nito
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
have any lore regarding his life during the Age of Fire, and it's just about him administering death. From this, we can infer
that's
that
it?
Nito either doesn't care about the Age of Fire, or maybe even just wants the Age of Darkness to occur. The only other bit
How
of
would
lore
you-
surrounding him is a boss named Pinwheel, who is a necromancer, presumably made up of 3 people, as referenced by the number of masks on the body, who stole an item from him known as the Rite of Kindling. There are quite a few theories regarding Pinwheel, like the fact that Pinwheel was originally a father, but his wife and child died, so he attempted to resurrect them, but it failed. And some have stated further that he's still trying to figure out how to
Jeez.
revive them, as we can see skeletons throughout the room, which could be seen as his test subjects. But other than that, we've pretty much discussed all of Nito. There isn't
Seriously?
anything else to speak about, which is a real shame.
He
His
really does
backstory
not
has
care.
a massive amount of potential, but it just felt unfinished. There are no
Just
major
doesn't care.
themes tied to Nito. He just
like that
kinda
about him.
exists. Our final Lord Soul belongs to Seath the Scaleless. Seath, as we remember, allied
traitor.
himself with our 4 lords and attacked the dragons. The reason he did this was because Seath, unlike the other dragons, was not immortal. All the other dragons had impenetrable scales that could not be broken with any type of weapon. Seath was not born with these scales, so in
Okay.
a sense he was not immortal. It was only until Gwyn was given their weakness from Seath, which we know is lightning, that Gwyn was able to pierce the dragon's scales and actually kill them. Seath was
Yeah.
envious of his brethren as they had what he didn't, so as thanks for working with Gwyn, he was named the Duke and given the Duke's archives, as well as some of Gwyn's Lord Soul for power. During the war, Seath
Okay.
found the Primordial Crystal, an item that gave him temporary immortality. But during this time in the Duke's archives, he eventually
We
went
just
mad with
destroyed
his
it.
experiments and his research. He is considered the grandfather of sorcery, as well as the creator of these
Okay.
creatures and the
Okay.
Moonlight Butterfly. Our first interaction with
Okay,
Seath
that
is
makes
that he
sense
ends up
then.
killing us and throwing us in a prison cell. We can see that theme of desperation as Seath is trying everything he can to get what he wants, but in the process it made him mad. He's not as mindful of his actions as he used to be and is sort of a shadow of his former self. One thing I find interesting in this prison is the abundance of miracle related items and the clothing that are scattered throughout the prison. It's
Okay.
possible that
I mean,
clerics were deemed suitable.
I mean, to have him as the grandfather or the ancestor of magic or the like the Carrion royal family. Yes, like the Carrion royal family. You know, there's always like sort of like an origin of all of these magic weapons or whatever spells or holy stuff or I don't know pyromancy, whatever. There's always some origin from it.
Subjects for
Now,
Seath
in the
experiments.
origin of
Maybe this
magic.
is due to their magical power or because they were so easy to defeat. To kill Seath, though, we need to head to the Crystal Caves, which I was originally going to say was probably the
Oh,
worst level
invisible
in this
floor.
game due to half the map being invisible, but the walk to the boss is surprisingly straightforward. Venturing off that
Okay.
path, though, is where the problem lies. To defeat Seath, we need to break his primordial crystal so that we can sever his immortality, giving us a chance to kill him. The story of
Okay.
these lords caused a bit of an imbalance throughout my playthrough. You can go through Lost Izalith and the Demon Ruins, which is filled with rich lore, tons of backstory, and compelling bosses that fit with the lore surrounding the Witch of Izalith, but then you go to the Four Kings and just find out that they were lords of New Londo who got tricked by Koth and consumed by the Abyss. It feels jarring going from one to the other, as one feels thorough while the other feels incomplete, like you missed something or there was more that should have been said. I don't think every boss needs to have a multi-page Wikipedia article in order for it to be considered a good
Yes,
story. I
but
think that the boss's story said what needed to be said in regards to the overarching plot, but I can't lie to you and tell you that I didn't leave these locations wanting more. I wanted to know
Okay,
more about the Four
that's fair
Kings and how
enough.
they rose to power, and I wanted to know more about Nito and Seath in general, but I never got that. And I guess in a way, this could be viewed as a positive, as I didn't walk out of these places not wanting to learn them at all, but rather wanted to learn more. The game invested me so much into its story thanks to its characters and environmental storytelling that I wanted the game to provide me with.
Bro, I'm working and I forgot to charge my laptop and it's switched off now. God damn, I was in such a mood. I understand him though. I get him. You know, you want to literally know more about the characters involved and everything. One thing I've always thought it revolts me about Souls games is the fact that you have to literally learn the story yourself. That really sucks, by the way. Okay, learn having to learn the story by yourself. But you know, as a gamer, I've always liked games where you know you play the game and everything is provided to you. You know, the story is interesting, but it's you know, but it's provided nonetheless. It's interesting, but it's provided. But as I grew older, that became tiresome. It's like, okay, there's a start and a finish to everything, and almost all the time, stories have to like surprise you and shock you, something like that. But with Souls games, they don't even provide you with the story unless you look for it. You know, you actively have to step forward to actually, you know, want to learn, read up on all of this information from all of these places, from the items of item descriptions, you know, spells, weapons. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. And you have to, and all only like short cutscenes that show a little bit of the action. You know, just for people like us who like to watch a little bit of a cutscene, but they don't really need to do all that. Or maybe they do. I don't know. You know, it's just crazy. It's insane to me. I like that though. I love it. The more I grow older, is the more I'm interested in Souls games, or games similar to Souls games with yeah, the element of like, you know, having you fully invest in the game. This, you know, like I think Souls games is a genre of games that managed to amass a whole lot of a whole lot of audience. Luckily, maybe not luckily, but through sheer smart hard work. But I think there are so many. It could have easily not done that. because of how difficult it is, or maybe it's because it's difficult that it amassed so many people. But all I'm saying is, I don't think kids are playing this game. I think adults are playing this game. You know,
more information on it. I wanted to be encapsulated by this story more than I already was. As with many Souls games, not all answers are explicitly told to us, but there was still a lot of burning questions I had that never got mentioned. With the Lord Souls in the vessel, we are now able to fight Gwyn, but we still have one final location we need to visit, which is the land of Ulasil, accessed via the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, the one and only DLC that Dark Souls 1 would have. We start this DLC by defeating this gold golem that has a woman named Dusk captured inside. Dusk was the princess of a place called Ulasil. According to her, it's a place from an age that existed long ago. Hilariously enough, she doesn't actually say anything after this. You would think that the DLC would sort of spin a story that her home is in danger and we need to save her, but she doesn't actually tell us that. She just
she
sells
says,
the sorceries.
yeah,
The DLC doesn't officially start though until we return back to her location with an item called the Broken Pendant, which causes us to get sucked into this portal and taken to Ulasil. As Dusk
why
said,
is it
Ulasil
though
is a
always
place
taken
from long
somewhere,
ago,
bro?
and while
By
you may be
force.
confused on how this fits within the geography of Lordran, this
Painting
place is a lot
world,
closer than you think. In fact, we
the
already ran
demons,
through it to get to the DLC.
giant
The
bird.
Dark-Root Garden is Ulasil. This is evident by the tree enemies who have a similar design to these tree-like enemies, and the same plants that are only found in the Dark-Root Garden are also found here as well.
Okay.
Ulasil was a city hundreds of years before the Dark-Root Garden came to be, so something happened that made this place turn into the garden that we know of. Well, to understand the story of Ulasil, we need to talk to Elizabeth.
But Princess Dusk is here no longer, snatched away by that horrifying primeval human. And so I must ask, couldst thou once more play the saviour? An abyss was
Once
begat
more.
of the ancient beast, and threatens to swallow the whole of Ulasil. Knight Artorias came to stop this, but such a hero has nary a murmur of dark. Without doubt he will be swallowed by the abyss, overcome by its utter blackness. Indeed, the abyss may be unstoppable. Still, I have faith that Princess Dusk may be rescued yet.
This prime
What
evil
about-
human
what
is
about
Manus
Ulasil,
of the
though?
Abyss, the final boss
what
of the
about the
DLC
guy?
and the thing that
Okay.
sucked us into Ulasil in the first place. So our job is to hunt Manus down. My main gripe with the DLC is justification, as technically with the Lord Vessel we can just leave, so why do we need to worry about this?
Yes,
It's
this
not an
boss is furious.
immersion-breaking problem, but it is a shame. While traveling to the land of Ulasil, you will come across this Colosseum-like structure, which is where we get to meet our next boss, Artorias of the
Artorias,
Abyss.
yes.
Artorias was one of the four
What
knights
about
of Gwyn.
Artorias?
The other three are Hawkeye Goth, who is sitting at the top of the tower
Hold
right
on,
next
hold
to the Colosseum. Karen, who appears in the Colosseum after
Wait, hold on. You said what's
So
his
I
name?
must ask,
What's his name?
the abyss, overcome by its utter
Ulasil, you will come across this Colosseum-like structure, which is where we get to meet our next boss, Artorias of the Abyss. Artorias was one of the four knights of Gwyn. The other
Four
three are
knights of
Hawkeye
Gwyn.
Goth, who is sitting at the top of the tower right next to the Colosseum.
The smithing
Karen,
guy.
who appears in the Colosseum after we defeat Artorias, and the final knight is Orenstein. Each of them were skilled in their own ways, as Hawkeye used his powerful great bow to shoot down dragons. In fact, he can actually help us shoot down Calamite, who is the last of the ancient dragons.
Jeez.
Orenstein also used his spear that was able to cut through the scales of dragons with ease, and we can also see the spoils of his war due to the amount of dragon heads that exist in Anor Londo. Artorias is also able to wield his greatsword with incredible finesse, and Kayrin used her two daggers to cut down anyone who opposed Gwyn's rule. But all of them, minus Orenstein, are way past their prime, which is a growing theme amongst the entire series. Garth was
Yeah.
imprisoned in this tower with nothing left
Same
to
as
do but
Elden
to
Ring.
make carvings. He also couldn't use his great bow anymore, as all the dragons have been wiped out, so he has no purpose. Kayrin may have had a deep love for Artorias, as when we visit her, she is next to a grave she made for him, and asks if we can give her his soul. If we do, she gives us her weapons and continues to sit by the grave, implying that she no longer wants to be a knight anymore. And Artorias came to Ulasil in an attempt to stop the abyss from spreading, but ended up losing and being corrupted himself. His left arm is also dangling, which might suggest that it's broken. This is because he used his shield to protect his wolf companion Sif, the same Sif from the main game, although he is much smaller in this DLC. Sif also has a different intro if you do the DLC first, because Ulasil is in the past, so he'll remember you in the present, and it makes killing him that much harder. In regards to Sif, it's possible that he doesn't want us getting the Covenant of the Abyss ring, as that allows us to travel through the abyss to kill the four kings. And given his owner's condition, Sif probably doesn't want us to end up like Artorias.
What the hell is that? I'm sorry. Still got to be cautious. You know, you never know. Somebody might actually be robbed right in front of my yard, so I got to check it out. Heard some noise. Heard some noise. Boy. Okay, there's nobody here. Okay, never mind. Never mind. I gotta check, man. I gotta check. I'm sorry. Okay, give me a break. I'll edit this part out. I think. I hope. I remember. I got a lot to do, bro. I got a lot to do. Okay.
The Artorias boss fight was actually really entertaining. He was the first boss
Yes.
that felt like the antithesis of this game's combat. Most of the
Yes,
game's pace
exactly.
has been very slow and
Oh
methodical, but he
man,
has these
it's
fast
exactly what
attacks
I
and
thought.
very few openers. I do wish though that there was at least an ounce of build up to this fight, as you can literally start the DLC and be at the boss room in about 10 minutes. I think having the player traverse some of the areas that are covered in these abyss creatures that grow in number as we get closer to Artorias would have been great, as it's
Okay.
slowly leading us towards this person responsible for all this death. While narratively it
Mm-hmm.
felt a bit too fast for me, the fight mechanically was great. After Artorias, we can explore
Yeah.
the rest of Ulucio and we can see how much
That's what I
this world
thought.
has
I
been
thought,
affected.
you know, I thought it was just a consequence of it being released when it was released, but Souls games have only built up from what they had before, right? The reason, it's even this very reason is the reason why I would say I like Sekiro when it comes to all Souls games. The reason I like Sekiro is because of the movement of the character and the bosses. It's just unmatched. Like I don't know. Like I don't know how people feel about that, but like I do know that the reason I like Sekiro is because of the movement. It's because of the fighting mechanics. Other games, Elden Ring is very good. When I see, when I fight against bosses and everything, I love fighting against bosses because obviously it's like upgraded version of Dark Souls and whatever. You get to see. I loved the Morg. Oh man, I'm talking about Elden Ring. I love the Omen King fight. I love how the Omen King fights. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Affected by the abyss, as all the inhabitants have been infected by this dark energy,
Reminds me of
turning them into
Ishin.
these disgusting creatures. Eventually, we'll reach the bottom, and this feeling of fear starts to set in as the
Oh.
world becomes darker and darker the further we go down.
Oh
Here in the
my
chasm
goodness.
of the abyss is where the darkness reaches its peak, and it's where
Those
these
are
dark sprites of humanity live. These are very similar in design to the actual humanity we consume in game. This seems to be humanity in a more physical form, one that is
Yeah.
more exposed and not constricted by the dark sign. At the foot of the chasm is our
Goodness.
final boss, Manus, the Father of the Abyss. Manus has an interesting story. Apparently, the
Yeah.
people of Ulusil were tricked by a serpent, who was probably Koth, into digging Manus' grave up. In doing so, it caused Manus to go wild and unleash his wrath upon them. According to his soul, Manus was once a human, but became Father of the Abyss when his humanity went wild, and now he eternally
Okay.
seeks his broken pendant. The same pendant we had to find to start the DLC. It's unclear why he liked this pendant so much, but it was possibly nostalgic to him, or was given to him by someone he loved.
matters a
And
lot.
because this pendant was so important to him, he did everything he could to get it back, which inevitably drove him
Yeah.
to insanity. It seems that he
Yeah.
got so desperate to find the pendant that he pulled in random people into this world, as the NPC Marvelous Chester is clearly not from this world, and he even says so himself. He also kind of looks like the hunters from Bloodborne, which is a nice
Yeah.
reference to the game. The main question many
Yeah.
within the community have, though, is who was Manus before he became his current deformed state?
Yeah,
Well,
you say it
we
was a
really
human
don't
who
know.
lost his soul.
Many have
So
said it's the furtive pygmy, and I like that idea, but I think it's less interesting than that. Many of the spells in this DLC say that they were created by an
Jesus, man,
Ulusilian
it's-
sorcerer on the brink of madness. I can't help but think that this is perfect for Manus' description. One thing that is interesting is that in the middle of the arena is a grave with a humanity-shaped hole, so maybe Manus was one of these humanity sprites when he died, or that this is what he turned into when he died. Regardless, it's a very interesting detail. I also couldn't get any footage of this, as she disappears when you leave the boss room, but Dusk apparently appears out of Manus when we kill him, meaning that he kidnapped her. This may confuse some people, as Dusk has been sort of all over the place in this game, and due to her going from the past to the present, it sort of screws with the time of it. It seems like she was sent into our time somehow and was captured by this golem. She then disappears and goes back into her time, which then leads to the Abyss incident with the people of Ulusil. Artorias is then called to defeat the Abyss, but fails, and then we get summoned into this world via Manus' hand, then save Dusk and go back to the present. It's still a little confusing, and the world of Dark
That is
Souls
so
is
very
also very
confusing,
confusing when
actually.
it comes to time, as always during this fading of the fire, time is very
So everything
convoluted
happened in an
because we can
instant, I
summon
imagine,
people as
in that
phantoms, and
moment.
the time sort of stops. It's very confusing, but that's how I think it went down. But with Manus dead, we have officially finished the DLC. However, this won't be the last time we'll hear of Manus, but that's for Dark Souls 2. Artorias of the Abyss was a great DLC. While it does lack in motivation information in regards to the player, the actual story of the DLC was great. It provides us with a nice
Okay.
timeline of events, as well as more insight into the Abyss and its effects on the world, and while not known at the time, it would eventually set up the plot to Dark Souls 2. It is
Got it.
without a doubt a worthy extension to the game's story. But now we can finally go to the kiln of the first flame and determine the fate of Lordran. The kiln is coated in ash, and we can see the spirits of those who followed Gwyn into the kiln walk around aimlessly. As we approach the first flame, we have one person in our way, and that is the Lord of Sunlight himself. Earlier I said
Lord
Gwyn
of
sacrificed
Cinder.
himself to rekindle the flame, and he did. But because of his Lord Soul's power, he was able to keep his body, but his mind was gone.
Gone,
Gwyn has
okay.
gone hollow. And while I'm more than capable of killing him myself, I couldn't dare start the fight without the guy who's been by my side since the very beginning. Solaire of Astora is easily the most well-known NPC in the entire
Solaire.
Souls franchise, and his story
Wow.
is a perfect representation of the mood this game is trying to convey. Throughout the whole game, we've been meeting with NPCs of all kinds, some with goals and
Okay.
others without. But none of them have managed to touch my heart in a way that Solaire and Siegmeyer did. Both of them had a goal in mind.
the
One
pumpkin
wants
guy,
to find
onions?
his sunlight, and the other wants to explore the world. But both are stuck. Siegmeyer always seems to be getting himself caught in some situation, whether that be a locked gate he can't enter or a poison swamp he can't cross, and Solaire can't find his sunlight. They both willingly became undead in
My
order to
God.
achieve their goals, and it tore me apart to hear that Siegmeyer couldn't see it through. Siegmeyer prides himself on being a
Yeah.
knight of Katarina, and that he can handle all of his troubles on his own. But with my help, I showed him that he wasn't a worthy knight after all, and that he always
Oh.
needed someone to rescue him. More often than not, in these games, your assistance will lead to their death. So it's either converse with them and enjoy their company, knowing that they will die because of you, or distance yourself from them, knowing that while it hurts, it's better that they get to live another day. NPCs of these games
Jesus.
will usually end up achieving a terrible fate, but this sadness makes the few times a happy outcome occurs all the better. Solaire wasn't able to find sunlight of his own. He became depressed and wondered if this journey was really worth taking, conveying the tone of the entire game. Is our journey
Okay.
and our struggle really worth it in the end? Which is why I owed it to him to make it right. It may not be the actual
Wait,
sun,
how
but the
did
first
you
flame
do it,
could be
though?
considered the sun. So for one final time, I summoned Solaire, and we took down Lord Gwyn.
Damn, bro. So, okay. Oh my god, man. Come on, bro. Come on, stop it. So, I don't know. Is it because Solaire is literally, like, is it part of his story? That's what I want to know. I'm confused here. Okay, hold up. Is it back? Okay, come on now. Pick up. There he is. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. A former shell of himself, I'm sure. Because they say he died, his mind is gone, that type of thing. Just like all the other Dark Souls bosses, I'm sure
Gwyn's
he's...
theme has such a fitting tune. All these bosses have these intense sounds with loud music, but Gwyn's is such a simple piano. It's not
Yeah.
intense, it's almost sad in a way that the most powerful man in the world has been reduced to nothing, and what was supposed to be a glorious fight between two warriors really isn't. It makes it all the
Yeah.
more worse when you realize that Gwyn can be parried, and once you nail this timing down, this fight is a cakewalk, further
Yeah.
showing how far from grace he has truly fallen. With Gwyn defeated, we can now choose our ending, but we aren't the only one who's able to choose. Since we managed to bring Solaire all the way to the end of the game, he was able to also fight Gwyn in his own world thanks to the convoluted timelines of Dark Souls. And it is
Okay.
canonized that he succeeded and linked the flame in his own world. He became the sunlight he was searching for, and that might be one of the greatest endings in the entire franchise. But while
Okay.
Solaire linked the flame, that doesn't mean we have to. If we choose the Age of Fire, the world continues. We rekindle the flame and use ourselves as kindling to continue this Age of Fire.
Okay.
If we instead choose to leave, we let the flame extinguish itself. We join the primordial serpents, including Koth and probably Frampt, and usher in an Age of Dark. One where humanity is at the top and we ourselves are the ruler. At least that's what we think will happen. Like many plots in
yeah.
the Soul series, this is once again left up to interpretation. We only get to see the very beginning of our choice, so anything after is just pure speculation. Who knows what will happen after, and who knows if our choice was really the correct one. That's always been up to the player to decide. But I've always felt that these endings are about comfort. Do we stay comfortable knowing that in the Age of Fire we aren't on top and might be mistreated due to our lack of strength? Or do we take the risk and see what the Age of Dark is about? One thing to note though is the circumstances regarding these endings. Fram says that the undead curse will be cured if we go with the Age of Fire, and not even Koth says anything about this when we talk with him about it. So does that mean that we'll stay undead, or at least still have the risk of going hollow in the Age of Dark? Furthermore, the Age of Fire was a time ruled by the gods, and they did what they could to keep it that way, but we killed them. Everyone in Anor Londo that is a god is either dead or
And
gone.
I don't wanna be
Gwendolyn
Gwyn.
is the only one that canonically lives thanks to Dark Souls 3. So even though an Age of Fire can be seen as the Age of Gods, that might not be true anymore, as we took care of most most of them.
I would
So
let the fire
there's
die.
positives and negatives both ways, and that's really been the point. There's never going to be a clear answer. It's just whatever
Yeah,
you think is right. As for
yeah.
me, I think an Age of Dark is the proper way to go.
I knew it.
As we said in the
Me
intro, the
too.
world of Dark Souls is like a set of operations. Things come and things
You
go.
go.
And the
Yeah,
Age of Dark
exactly.
should have followed after the Age of Fire, but due to Gwyn breaking the rules of the world, that didn't
Yeah, he
happen.
delayed
So I
it.
think in an
He
attempt
delayed
to
the
set
whole
things
thing.
back on track before further destruction, an Age of Dark is the way to go. Regardless of what happens in this Age of Dark, at the very least things will transition back to the way it was supposed to be. However, that might not be the actual ending. Given the future titles, some have debated on proper endings, and given the status of Dark Souls 3, linking the flame, I think, is the real ending, and is definitely the most agreed upon, as just about every person in this game will speak about linking the flame. We only hear about the Age of Dark from Koth, who we have to jump through several hoops to just even meet. I can almost guarantee someone has gone throughout the entire game and didn't even know that an Age of Dark was the real option because of how
Exactly.
hidden it is.
Exactly.
And while it's
Exactly.
not my preferred ending, continuing the Age of Fire would set in motion numerous events for us to discover. Dark Souls 1 was a
There.
fantastic experience from start to finish, and while the road was a little bumpy sometimes along the way, its story wrapped up wonderfully. It's a game that I recommend you play at least once in your lifetime, as you will never get to experience something like this ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I like that. I
But we're
like
just
that.
getting started.
Ooh.
Dark Souls.
Ooh, no, 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 no. We're gonna stop it right there. I've been recording for a long time now, I'm sure. Let me make sure I've been recording actually. Oh my god. Imagine if I haven't been recording. Okay, I have been recording. Oh my god, bro. How long have I been recording? 1 hour and 10 minutes. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah, but that was amazing though. That was amazing. A good introduction to Dark Souls 1, a good introduction to Dark Souls in general. It's all about a cycle of the fire being linked or the fire just fading away. Around when the fire was going to fade, Gwyn stopped that cycle and he linked the fire with using himself as kindling, using himself as the, whatever. And he was powerful enough to do it. And we also became powerful enough to do the same thing before the fire fades once more. But nobody has ever let the cycle just go through, which is the second ending, which is like letting the dark age pass, come to be, and everything by letting the fire, dim and whatever. I don't know. English is not my first nor second language. I don't care. But anyway, I loved that story, and I've I've been aware that the story of Dark Souls has been depressing, and Elden Ring is the same. I don't think it's this. Okay, is it the same though? Like, I don't know, because with Elden Ring, I feel like there's a much more lighter mood to it. I don't know, but Dark Souls, oh my god, like it's like everybody is not getting their way. Everybody is just doing what they have to do. It's all dark. It's all dim. There's no light anyway. Even the most brightest place in this game turned out to be fake, done by somebody who was holding on to the past, and that's insane to me. It's like, damn, bruh, is there any positive thing here? The NPCs. I mean, the positive NPCs, man, like they all dying apparently. I don't like to see that, bro. I don't like to see them. Damn, that really sucks, bro. I know Blythe, for example. And EG from Elden Ring. Oh my God, God bless their souls. They died. Okay, they're not real people, but I liked EG. I liked EG. Blythe, his story was already set in motion. He was already gonna die somehow. I don't know, but with EG, it was like, damn, he didn't need to die. He didn't need to die. They killed him. They killed him. He was killed. I don't understand why. And now with Dark Souls, it's like the two positive characters. Is it Saleh and the other one, the onion guy, pumpkin onion guy? I don't know. And I've seen him before on Dark Souls 3. Yeah, I think I've reached at least that part of Dark Souls 3 where I've seen him before. I like him. I like him, bro. And all of a sudden, he also dies. My God, I gotta play this game at least once in my life, as Genji here over here said. Anyway, guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe for more. I'm gonna react to more of this. The next video will be Dark Souls 2. It will be Dark Souls 2, and I can't wait, man. I can't wait to learn about Dark Souls 2. Like I said, I have Dark Souls 2. I've played a little bit of it. I completely don't know what's going on, and that is something that I like. And I know Dark Souls 2 was not liked because of how difficult it was, blah blah blah. But the lore, that's why I'm here. I'm here for the lore, man. I'm here for the lore. Dark Souls 3, I have a picture of what's happening in that one. Um, Not really clearly, to be honest with you. I do know that it's all a continuation and everything, and that makes me want to know more. Okay. Oh man, and I gotta confess this part. The Nameless King. The Nameless King. He was mentioned here. He was mentioned as one of the children of Gwyn, and I do know his story. I have to admit that. Not much. Don't know why he aligned himself with the enemy, with the dragons. I don't know. The enemy of his father, but he aligned himself with them, and maybe, it's ironic, isn't it? It's like you're working alongside a dragon that betrayed his own kind to destroy his kind, and at the same time, your firstborn son betrays you to work with the very enemy that you succeeded in destroying. And even in death, I mean, even after your own death, he still works with them. Boom! Wow, that sucks. That's a sad part. I don't know. It's not so sad. What am I saying? I'm trying to be smart. Okay, I'm trying to act smart. Okay, leave me alone. Okay. Anyway, subscribe to the channel for more, and let's watch more, guys. Come on, subscribe. Come on, come on. Let's go. Bye bye.